All right, guys, welcome back. So we're coming to chapter 17 in the novel now, and we can note that chapter 17 is the beginning of the courthouse drama. So the court scene begins here. We saw everybody kind of coming to the courthouse. Now finally the court scene is beginning. So that's the main thing that's going to be happening in this chapter. I want to point out a few things in chapter 17, but not too much. As you know, the court case is set up. You have Tom Robinson, right, versus Bob and Mayella Ewell. And you want to think back to the beginning of this novel unit. In the first time we went to Scout school, what did we learn about the Ewells and the Ewell family? So we saw a bit of an insight into their family situation, that the dad is an alcoholic. The kids are uneducated and dirty, very dirty. There seems to be, violence going on there, and poverty. They're very poor. So remember, Cunninghams were kind of poor but clean, and their clothes were, sewed up and stuff. Versus the Ewells, the guy had like a rat or a mouse living in his hair. They didn't even have shoes on, things like that. Now we're going to get a little bit more insight into the background here, but as you know, this is a supposed rape, and we've got the issue of race coming in here, because Tom Robinson, being a black man, well, it's going to be very difficult to win this case for Atticus. And remember, Atticus said about Miss Dubose, real courage is, I'm going to just take this case and fight it through to the end, even though I know I'm probably going to lose, or almost certainly going to lose. And that's what Miss Dubose did with her cancer fight. Morphine addiction fight. But she won. Is Atticus going to win? Now, we're going to get some background information that we need about the Ewell's kind of family situation. Okay, so I'm just skipping down here to page 90. There's just a couple things I want to point out in this chapter 17. So Bob Ewell gets called to the stand, and now Scout, in her typically grown-up, childlike way of narrating, remember the dual narration, that Scout is an adult looking back on herself as a child and telling the story through her own childlike perspective. She's going to give us a description of what it was like in the Ewell family, and this is very important. And remember, a term that was used before was white trash. Okay, and we want to think about this because this is a very racist term. Okay, racism goes two ways. It's like there's racism against white people too, right? These people are being equated with worthless garbage. It is dehumanizing, right? All racism is dehumanizing. And so we're going to see what their situation is actually like. Every town the size of Maycomb had families like the Ewells. No economic fluctuations changed their status. People like the Ewells lived as guests of the county in prosperity as well as in the depths of a depression. No truant officers could keep their numerous offspring in school. No public health officer could free them from congenital defects, various worms, and the diseases indigenous to filthy surroundings. So notice, doesn't matter how the economy is, doesn't affect them. Why? They are like lowest possible economically. Okay, lowest in society. Why am I saying lowest? In a way, they're actually worse off than some black families. Because look at Calpurnia. She's got a steady job, she works full time, she's not an alcoholic, right? She's clean, she's educated. So first of all, they're the lowest in society in terms of, they're among the lowest. There may be others who are also low like this in the black community, but the point is, they're the lowest in the white community, and they're lower than some blacks. Now, they may be lower than some blacks economically, but technically they still have superiority in the racist legal system. And Bob Ewell's gonna use that. Also, education, right? They can't even keep their kids in school. Also, health. So health and education, they're dirty, they're poor, they're uneducated, and they have diseases. Maycomb's Ewells live behind the town garbage dump. Notice how they live close to dirty or filthy surroundings. In what was once a Negro cabin. It was once a Negro cabin. So they're living in a house that black people abandoned. Okay, it doesn't look very good for them. The cabin's plank walls were supplemented with sheets of corrugated iron, its roof shingled with tin cans hammered flat. So only its general shape suggested its original design. Square with 4 tiny rooms opening onto a shotgun hall. The cabin rested uneasily upon 4 irregular lumps of limestone. Its windows were merely open spaces in the walls, which in the summertime were covered with greasy strips of cheesecloth to keep out the varmints that feasted on Maycomb's refuse. So they don't even have like glass in the windows, and dirty animals that come to eat the garbage can try to come in their house. The varmints had a lean time of it. It means they can't even find food. For the Ewells gave the dump a thorough gleaning every day. So they eat trash. They go through the town garbage dump to find food. And the fruits of their industry, those that were not eaten, made the plot of ground around the cabin look like the playhouse of an insane child. What passed for a fence was bits of tree limbs, broomsticks, and tool shafts, all tipped with rusty hammerheads, snaggle-toothed rakeheads, shovels, axes, and grubbing hoes, held on with pieces of barbed wire. Enclosed by this barricade was a dirty yard containing the remains of a Model T Ford on blocks, a discarded dentist chair, an ancient ice box, plus lesser items, old shoes, worn-out table radios, picture frames, and fruit jars, under which scrawny orange chickens pecked hopefully. One corner of the yard, though, bewildered Maycomb. Against the fence in a line were 6 chipped enamel slop jars holding brilliant red geraniums, cared for as tenderly as if they belonged to Miss Maudie Atkinson, had Miss Maudie deigned to permit a geranium on her premises. People said they were Mayella Ewells. This is very important, okay? There's a sign of beauty and a desire for some sort of beauty and culture here in Mayella. Mayella desperately wants to preserve something that's beautiful. She has these flowers and she cares for them very tenderly. So we get a little insight into Mayella's psychology, right? She is trying, amidst living amongst garbage, to try to keep some symbol or sign of beauty and life here. Nobody was quite sure how many children were on the place. Some people said 6, others said 9. There were always several dirty-faced ones at the windows when anybody passed by. Nobody had occasion to pass by except at Christmas, when the churches delivered baskets, and when the mayor of Maycomb asked us to please help the garbage collector by dumping our own trash. So you get the idea, okay? It's pretty bad. They're really poor. And at the end of the chapter, there's going to be a revelation about Mayella getting hit on a certain side of her face. And Atticus asks Mr. Ewell to write something down. And it's discovered Bob Ewell is left-handed. But the problem is, if he was left-handed, right, this is my left hand, he would punch like this and hit the person's right eye, right? If they're facing me and I punch like that, it hits them in the right eye. But that's not, that is going to cause a problem because of where Mayella's bruises are on her face. Okay? So this is very important. Atticus is showing clear evidence about who hit Mayella. And when we come to Tom Robinson, we're going to see there's a big trick here that Atticus is building. Strong case against the fact that Tom Robinson supposedly hit Mayella, but that we're going to see that's going to end up being impossible, okay? Because of the whole situation of, where on her face she's been hit, okay? So did she get hit on this side, a black eye, or on this side? Now, so that's it for chapter 17.